Let's talk about training equipment. Today I'm gonna break down all my training equipment I'm using for training for my sub 10 hour Ironman. And if you also want to go into this journey, I will also break down all the costs of my first Ironman 70.3, so you know what you have to spend if you want to get into it. And also bear in mind, obviously I try to keep everything as cheap as possible. So let's jump right into it.
Mountains over hills, rather take the wins over meals. These are the brakes, hands on the wheels. Wanna let it tell the story like a real, I'm for real. Dragon blood in my pedigree. I'm first to the goal like the letter G. Took my name out the sky just to let it breathe. It's the return of the Titan, no Tennessee.
So for today's workout, we have kind of a sweet spot and threshold workout. Means I'm gonna start with 30 minutes of rather easy to get the legs firing and warmed up. And then we have 2 sets of 3 times 4 minutes at threshold or sweet spot pace or power, I would say. I actually do really enjoy those workouts because it really feels like it's directly increasing and helping you to get your FTP higher, which obviously is not true, but I mean sometimes the mind plays a big role too. If you're wondering why I'm actually on the inside trainer or why I'm mainly focusing on using the indoor trainer over the last few weeks, it's first of all, it's very time efficient. And if I learned something preparing for my first Ironman 70.3, time efficiency or time management is absolutely key if you want to get the most out of your Ironman prep and Ironman training. And on days where work is just simply so busy, there's just so much to do, I simply just want to pop on the indoor trainer, not having to worry about traffic or anything else, sit on the trainer, just do my workout fully focused, locked in, no distractions. I just prefer it this way. Obviously, there's a certain fun to riding outside, but sometimes it's literally you have to choose what's more convenient and time efficient rather than what's more fun. That's also another thing, that's for sure. But also when it comes to especially threshold and sweet spot workouts, it's much easier to hit the desired target zones and power zones than me being outside, having constant red lights, traffic, and other things I have to pay attention to. So that's definitely my preferred way for these workouts specifically, but in general. And also another point is that I simply don't have any power meters on my bike itself, so I'm using the built-in one to my indoor trainer. But about the setup, I will talk later with you and which options there are for what price ranges. But yeah, still in the warm-up, and then it's time to get some sweat going and hit those threshold zones. Okay, let's talk about bike equipment. And obviously the first thing you will need is a bicycle. But when it comes to bikes, I think we all know how quickly it can get really expensive. So in the beginning, you really don't need the best and most and newest advanced bike. I basically actually took over my father's old bike, which is more than 11 years old, and it works perfectly fine. It's not carbon, it's not light, it's just a good bike, a good road bike that gets the job done, and especially gets me started without breaking the bank. There's always a way to upgrade later on, especially when it comes to biking. There's always a small thing you can upgrade on your bike before actually upgrading your bike itself. So getting this out of the way, the bike is the first thing. Don't go overboard. There's amazing sites where you can get secondhand bikes like Bicycle. I can highly recommend that. It's seller proof and buyer proof, and it's really good bicycles for good prices. And the second thing that I'm using basically almost every day is my indoor bike trainer. I'm currently using the Wahoo Kickr Core. It's the entry-level model and it's perfect. It has a power meter, it has an erg mode. It's basically everything I need for those bad weather day indoor sessions, or like I said, if I want to have a very effective and convenient session, let's say a speed or VO2 max session, a sweet spot or threshold session. But you don't necessarily right away need to go out and buy like a modern bike indoor trainer. I literally started out using an old Garmin mechanical trainer. Yes, it doesn't have a power meter built in, but it definitely does get the job done. I used it for my first Ironman 73 prep, and it's just good to get you into things and also have an option, like I said, when the weather is bad. But if you have a bit more money to spend, I would highly recommend the Wahoo Kickr Core. In my opinion, the value to price is insane. I'm really happy about it, super convenient. Can highly recommend that one. Then obviously we're getting into more the nitty-gritty stuff. You definitely need some bike shoes. Also here, you don't need to go overboard and buy the most expensive Specialized or whatever shoes. I literally bought the one from Ryzon. Fantastic shoes. I don't know, I've never had an expensive bike shoe, so I don't know how the difference feels, but I'm literally using them for months now and they're holding up pretty good. I would definitely say though, even if you're going for a cheaper model, don't buy the cheapest. Even from the Ryzon ones, I didn't buy the cheapest model. I bought the mid to premium one, which is still way cheaper than most shoes, but you will definitely feel the quality difference there. Same goes for bib shorts or in general bike gear. We all know how expensive bike gear can get. When I got into cycling, it was crazy to me that you can literally pay at least 300 euros for a jersey, which I totally don't understand. I mean, in the end, it's fabric. Yes, it looks cool, don't get me wrong. But when it comes to bibs, I definitely wouldn't cheap out as well. Like I said, I wouldn't, let's say, buy the cheapest you can find on Amazon or Decathlon or wherever. I can highly recommend this German brand if you're based here. If not overseas, I think you obviously got to do your own research. They're called Strade, I don't know what it's called. But they're definitely not the most cheapest brand, but they're also not the most expensive brand. And especially when it comes to bib shorts, when you have your long rides, trust me, you don't want to go too cheap here. You want to get a solid pair of bib shorts, otherwise you will regret the pain you have in your, gentle area for quite some time. So when it comes to bibs, don't cheap out there, but also obviously don't spend too much money just because you want to look cool. But if you have the money, go ahead. Then, one more thing my mother would be proud of me saying, when it comes to helmets, please, that's I think one point where you definitely should spend some money and get a quality helmet. I actually went to the store and made sure that the helmet fits me properly instead of just ordering it online. This one is a MIPS version, which basically means it has multilateral or multi-directional, if I understand it properly, secure features. I don't plan on stress testing that, but when it comes to helmet, obviously it's all about your security and your safety. I think I don't need to tell you, don't cheap out on that. And when it comes to helmets, obviously you don't necessarily need to get the most aero helmet for the start. It also highly depends where you live. I chose a more aero style helmet, which doesn't have the most breathability or airflow, because I mean here it's never getting too hot. It still is quite good when it comes to airflow, but it's a good compromise in my opinion. You just gotta know what you want. Do you want a more aero helmet, or do you rather want to have a more airflow through the helmet in case you're training in higher humidity or higher heat, so you don't overheat. Then one thing I definitely also want to add into bike equipment is carb powder or carbs. This is a German brand called Ministry. It's all natural flavored. I also will talk about the gels later in the running section. But obviously I don't need to tell you how important fueling is, especially for your long rides, but even on those sweet spot workouts, if it's going over an hour, you should try to at least aim for 40 to 60 grams per hour. And it's cool if you have different types of carb powder for different types of rides. This one is fast carb, which basically means it goes straight into your blood, quick into your blood, and is easier and quicker absorbable. And this is slow carb, which is great for your long rides, which, for example, is easier on the digestion, but also gives you energy over a longer sustained period of time. Don't want to go too much into nitty-gritty here, but get yourself a favor, get some proper fuel, especially if you want to take it serious, because if you train once with fuel, we will never go back. Trust me, I've always believed training fasted is good because it makes you hard and makes you go faster and really makes you suffer and you will endure the pain. But once I actually, for my first time ever, tried the carb powder or in generally training fueled, it's a game changer. I played my whole life professional basketball quite intensively, and I've never paid attention to in-training nutrition. And now where I'm doing equal or maybe even way more intense workout sessions, I really can feel the difference, how quickly I recover after the sessions and also how much more energy I have during the sessions. And then obviously there is a bike computer. It's on my bike right now. I'm using quite an old one, the Garmin 530, I think it is. There's not a specific one you definitely need to go for. Don't go too crazy, honestly. If it is able to monitor your power, your cadence, your speed, and give you directions in the map, I think that's basically all you need. There's no reason to go for a more expensive one. Instead, in case you have the money, you can do that. I have just the most basic one, the old one from Garmin, and it gets the job done. I don't need anything else. So that's basically everything for the bike. I know it's a lot, and definitely there's always more money and more things to upgrade to. So yeah, slowly start getting into it, and then you can see where you go over time. Interval 1 completed at around 3:45 pace. I'll definitely try to hold that for the rest of the tours, but let's see how it goes. 3 more to go. Loving it. Today's track workout was definitely not an easy one. It was 4 times 800 meters. Started at home with some dynamic stretching and then some banded activations to get all the proper muscles firing. So I have a better running economy, which I usually always do, and is super crucial in my opinion. Then 2K warm up to the track. At the track did some specific running drills, which helped a lot with also getting all the muscles properly warmed up to reduce the risk of injuries. And then it was time for the main set, 4 times 800 meters with 600 meters of rest in between. 3K at the end after the 4 times 800 to just recover and get the heart rate down to zone 2. And now 1K easy, cool down, run to home. Definitely a very successful workout. I love these speed sessions. Don't do them often enough, but when I do, I really enjoy them. When it comes to the running equipment I'm using for my Ironman training, it's quite straightforward. It all starts with some good pair of running shoes. The reason I'm having 2 here, and also why I would recommend you buying 2 if you can, it's totally fine to start off with 1. I did the same, but I would eventually upgrade to at least 2 pairs of running shoes. The reason is that it's just simply much better for your feet to have different types of drops and different types of like insoles and just a different running feel, so your foot and your whole body just doesn't get used to one specific pair of shoe to prevent injuries. This is a very, very key essential that everybody told me when I was picking out my running shoes, is just simply have multiple pairs. If you can afford it, it's even great to have multiple pairs for different training, let's say for your speed runs, your long runs, or just your threshold runs and your daily trainers. This is essential, not necessarily needed, but at least 2 different pair of shoes. Not the two same ones, that's not solving the problem, but 2 different shoes will help you to prevent injuries, overuse injuries. And also one last thing I would recommend, if you're new to this, I would also highly recommend going to a proper store. Also make sure that the people working in the store are runners themselves or have some sport background, might even be studying sports. That's a bonus, but at least they should be in the game themselves, and then do a proper running analysis and let you, you can obviously try to go for the shoes that you want, but try to listen and let them guide you which shoes you should start with, especially in the beginning. Just to have the right trainers will make a big difference for you, just simply being able to enjoy your training a lot more. Then another important thing, if you're really serious about training effectively and taking your training serious, then you need a watch that you can track your data, your speed, your heart rate, and your pacing zones and everything like that. So I'm using currently a Garmin. It doesn't need to be a Garmin. Honestly, another brand that does a really amazing job for a great value in money is Coros. Also totally perfectly fine. I think this is the Forerunner 954, not the newest one. I choose that one because it has the multi-sport function, so I can use it for triathlons. But honestly, even during the race, it didn't work perfectly fine. It was a user error, and I didn't actually need it. It was totally fine. I just set the running for my marathon pace, and on the bike anyway, I had my bike computer. So if you don't want to waste that money, because in training you're probably not going to do all 3 at once, so it's totally fine to have a watch that doesn't have a multi-sport function and just track your running, cycling and swimming individually. So don't break the bank on this. But one thing that is important that you should have paired with your watch is a heart rate monitor. You simply can't rely on the heart rate data coming out of this one. It's not really accurate, and if you really want to make sure that you're hitting the right training zones and you're not overpacing or underpacing yourselves, get a heart rate monitor. I think it's like another $80. It's a bit annoying. For Coros, the cool thing is they do have one for around the arm. I'm honestly not sure how accurate that one is, but it's kind of nice having it around your arm, because the one around the chest is often for me very uncomfortable and slips quite often, but that's a minor problem, and I would definitely say this is essential that you can't skip. Another thing, obviously I don't need to tell you, you're not going to run naked, but what you should get is also, for me personally, a good pair of running tights. And in my opinion, it's really worth it investing a bit more into your running tights and getting a really comfortable one. Especially for your long runs, the last thing you want is shaving, especially, in that area. It's not fun, especially if you have ever stepped into the shower after having done quite a long run and you shaved pretty badly. It's not fun. So I can recommend, this one is a German brand, so I'm not sure if that's available in your location. It's from Ryzon. Honestly, it's not the cheapest brand, but it's sustainably sourced. It's really good when it comes to manual labor, and generally this is the most comfortable running tights I've ever run in. No shaving, no problem, because it doesn't have any inner stitching here, so you're totally fine. Can recommend that, Ryzon. But in general, just make sure to not cookie cutter on running equipment, otherwise you will really hate your long runs. Sunglasses and a hat are not really essential, but I would highly recommend, especially if you live in more hotter areas or humid areas. Protect your head, because especially on your long runs, your head is exposed to sunlight and sunshine the whole time, and you definitely, the last thing you want is like a heat stroke, or that you can't finish your workout because you're simply overheating. The sunglasses, honestly, are really just an essential, but you will anyway need one for the bike. And when it comes to sunglasses, I had no clue when I got into it, and there's tons of different types of shading. So I would recommend just do your research and get one that you can use for the bike and for running, just simply so you can use one and save some money. Another really crucial part many people don't think about, and I'm using it literally every time I go for a run. I always do my warm-up. Yes, I'm young, but I don't care what you say. Injury prevention wise, having a good warm-up routine is essential and very key. So I often start with dynamic stretching, and then this bad boy comes into play. It's very great for like doing some side steps. I will show that in another video if you're interested. And it's just simply good for your glute activation and general like muscle activation. So you can really start using the right muscles when you're running and having a proper running form. You're more economic and simply have more fun when running. So this is super cheap to get. You can get on Amazon, anything. It's just a mini band. It doesn't need to be the strongest resistance, but it's a really cool essential tool to have that you can even take on your travels or wherever you are. Super small, super light, but it will help you to have a good form. And then another essential, I would say, yes, it could be optional, but I would highly recommend, especially if you're training for an Ironman, you definitely want to make sure that you stay on top of your game when it comes to nutrition. There's the option that you can run with those Nerd flasks or those hydrate flask from Salmon. I think there's a few options out there that you can literally run with in your hand. I started doing that when I was training for my first marathon. It's a good option. Honestly, it's annoying and I usually don't like drinking too much liquid when running. So gels is the best option for me. This is the one with a 1 to 0.8 ratio from glucose to fructose. I also usually use the 1 to 4, 1 to 2, I think. Works totally fine for me, especially for training, for high intensity sessions. Also, when it comes to racing, this is the better ratio. And honestly, having 40 grams of carbs in your gels, doesn't matter which one you choose. I'm using the one from Ministry right now, another German brand, because it's all natural flavored and I really like the taste. It's not too sweet. And I also honestly, when it comes to gels, that's one thing. Don't stick to brand just because your favorite triathlete or Ironman uses those ones. You need to test them for yourselves and see if your gut can handle it. Because if you can't handle it, it doesn't make sense. The last thing you want is to go to the toilet when you have your long runs or runs. So try it out for yourself. I really can highly recommend Ministry, but it might not work for you, and that's totally fine. One thing I forgot to mention, if you're curious which shoes I'm currently using, these are the New Balance Rebel version 4, I think. That's not the super trainer, for sure not. It's just the trainer with for my speed sessions. I absolutely love those and I'm really happy. It's my first New Balance and so far I'm really loving those. These are the ASICS Novablast. I think you definitely heard about them before. They're quite popular. I use them for my long runs. I don't usually like too much cushioning, so I even use more speed trainers for my long runs. The Novablast 5, honestly, honest verdict, are quite nice, quite good, but not my favorite shoes for sure. Not feeling the hype, but it's a good combination between all of those shoes, just in case you were curious which ones I'm using. But like I said, you need to find the right pair for you. And that's basically all the running equipment I'm using for my Ironman training right now. It's definitely not cheap, but it's for sure way cheaper than the bike section or the bike portion. But the beautiful thing about swimming, which we're going to talk about in the next section, it's super cheap. So basically what you were seeing the whole time is one workshop we try to do at least once every quarter. We are locking ourselves into a room for 2, 3, sometimes even 4 days straight, just working. And instead of just hearing it all the time from myself, I would love to give you to my co-founder, Tim, that also can explain specifically why this is a good idea and why you maybe should do one of those workshops as well.
Hey everybody. I think the goal of a workshop in general is to kind of have, like at the beginning of the year, you have a goal, you have a direction, right? But we all know that everybody has a plan, as Mike Tyson said it, until you get punched in the face. But it is always great to adjust and check. Are you on the right track? I think the best benefit of it, or the first one and biggest one why we do it, is to just see, okay, we have a goal, but are we still on track? And what can we adjust now? Like the more you experiment and the more you actually find out and learn on the go, the better you can adjust on the go. That's the beauty of it, instead of waiting a whole year and then be like, oh, sorry, we could have outdone this mistake like 6 months ago or something. That burns through the hole, and even money-wise as well, and it hurts. It's the same thing. I mean, if we apply it on life, right? We all know people that start fitness at the beginning of the year, and we are trying to basically avoid that. It shouldn't be a yearly thing. The more cycles we go through, even entrepreneurship, lean startup wise, the better we can adjust things. Like every single time we came up with new strategies. All the workshops we've done so far, we came up with new strategies, better strategies, and actually elevated our direction we set for the beginning of the year.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Couldn't have it said any better. There you have it. And that's not only applying to business or entrepreneurship, but Tim said it also very well. It applies very well to your daily life. So there you have it from the man yourself. What do a weekend warrior with 10k Instagram followers and Cristiano Ronaldo have in common? They both understand something 90% of athletes are missing. People think that everybody understood the power of social media nowadays. I think there has been also a big shift on social media.
We are all becoming consumers of other people's journeys and living vicariously.
You won't even believe what opportunities having a personal brand will give you and what doors it will open. You don't necessarily need to have your 100k, your 200k.
I don't believe in the whole 10,000 hour rule and whatever. You just need to start.
No one gives a shit. If you're interested in actually listening a bit more in depth about an athletes and founders and entrepreneurs lifestyle and want some powerful stories, practical lessons and insights, a bit more in depth, and also maybe hear some insights on how you can build your personal brand, your social media strategy, and all these kind of things, feel free to actually listen to our Run the Brand podcast, which we recorded a new episode now. Would love to have you there if you're interested. Make sure to subscribe to that podcast channel as well. That will mean a lot. But yeah, no pressure. If you'd like to just hang with us a bit more longer and in depth, see you there.
So you know that I'm not gonna stress. Took a little bit of time just to rest.
So when it comes to swimming, it's so different to cycling and running. You're not simply just going to get better by doing more volume and just swimming harder. You actually need to focus on technique. I personally found for myself that I reduce the total amount of volume I swim per session, but rather go more often to the pool. I actually improve in my swimming quite a lot and also focus every session on doing at least a few meters of technique where swim equipment comes into place. And I usually like to start my swim sessions with a warm-up, with a banded warm-up, which is very good to make sure that your shoulders and lats and all muscles are warmed up so you don't injure yourself with swimming. Then obviously you have the typical stuff like fins. I usually like to swim at least a few 100 meters with fins because it helps me to just be better balanced in water so I can focus on my technique exercises. Then obviously you have stuff like finger paddles, which help you a lot when it comes to improving your muscle endurance and your arm strength or stroke strength. I at the moment don't use it that much because I'm not there yet. And also when you start out, make sure you start out with smaller fins, not too big, because your muscles also need to be able to handle it. And then we have a pool kick, which is basically a mix between a pool boy and a kickboard. I personally really like using this because it makes it easier so I don't have to carry too much equipment, because basically, as I said, it's a pool boy and a kickboard, so I can at the same time train my leg kicks and my kicks, while at the same time also being able to just put them into my legs and focus on my arm stroke. So I rather have this than having a kickboard and a pool boy to carry with myself. Then obviously, very essential, I should have maybe have started with that one, is a good pair of swim goggles. And when it comes to swim goggles, you don't need to spend too much money and go crazy. It's just very important, in my opinion, that you have 2 different pairs, especially for race day. Some clear ones and some with sunglass features, I would say, or shaded glasses. Because if it's sunny, you definitely want shaded glasses, otherwise you won't be able to see anything, especially in open water. And obviously, if it's cloudy, it's nice to have some clear ones. I have some basic ones from Speedo. I heard the ones from Roka are really good. Haven't tried them yet. And honestly, when it comes about these anti-fog sunglasses, anti-fog goggles, you don't necessarily need them. I basically just spit in my glasses, as disgusting as it sounds, and works totally fine. And then when it comes to race day, you obviously also need a wetsuit. And when it comes to wetsuit, you obviously don't need to break the bank as well, because totally honest, when are you ever going to use one? I personally used mine once in a swimming pool around spring when it was still cold, sometimes when my open water swims, but only really if it's cold outside, and then maybe for race day, depending where you're going to have your race. So honestly, don't buy the most expensive one, just buy the one that you can afford. It gets the job done. You don't need to go crazy. If you can, of course, do what you want. But yeah, I think swimming, the beautiful thing, it's not so expensive, but trust me, having the right swim equipment will make the biggest difference in you improving actually in your swim performance or getting stuck where you are at the moment. But let's get home and see how much everything costed. So what did it actually cost me to do my first ever Ironman 70.3, and how much is it costing me now training for my Ironman? And honestly, it's definitely not cheap, and if you take everything together, including the registration fees, for my first ever Ironman 70.3, I paid roughly around 3,200 euros just to do everything and get ready for it. When it comes to my Ironman, obviously now I've upgraded my gear and equipment a bit and took it up a notch, which probably will make it around roughly 4,000 euros. It's still not as bad as it could be, because in my opinion, if you want to get into Ironman training, you should try to keep it as cheap as possible, because especially with triathlon, you can really quickly break the bank and it will take out the joy out of this whole beautiful sport. So honestly, like I've said multiple times, try to get into it as cheap as possible. There is ways, buying a used bike, maybe even taking old stuff from friends or family. Just try to make it as cheap as possible and only focus on actually what really matters. And that's simply pushing yourself and your performance every week and getting better and better a few percent. But if you stuck around until this time of the video, thanks so much for watching it all the way through. You're a real one, and I can't wait to catch you in the next video. Also, let me know if there's any questions or anything I should cover in the next few videos. I'm doing this here to build a strong community of like-minded people, so I really want to interact with you guys in the comments, so please leave there some feedback, and I catch you next week or in 2 weeks at latest.